So I'd like to say a few words about the unique opportunity this presents to celebrate Italian culture in the world. So we're looking beyond Italy, we're looking beyond Italian Americans, and as we sit in this room, we see the impact of Italian culture on all of the Americas. Behind me, of course, is the shield of Colón, who's a very, controversial figure, I guess, in the United States and the Americas in general, but nonetheless a really important figure in our world history who has, some people will argue ties, but we're going to say who has a strong foundation in Italy. And if you noticed when you walked in, there are these lovely murals in this space, and those murals are painted by an Italian-Brazilian named Candido Portinari. So when you're thinking of Italian culture in the Americas, you can't look past the state, the largest state in Brazil, São Paulo. Over 70% of the Italians who went to Brazil and who we can all thank for coffee, came to the state of São Paulo. So as we sit here, we're seeing a true celebration of Italian culture in the world, beyond Italy, beyond the United States, all across our American hemisphere. So it's my pleasure to welcome you to this space that is imbued with Italian culture, and that also serves materials from Latin America and the Caribbean. And we are, of course, next door to the European Reading Room, where we serve materials from all over Europe. And I have the great pleasure of serving as the chief of this division that oversees both of these reading rooms, called the Latin American, Caribbean, and European Division. We are a special place because we have people who are deeply engaged with foreign language and with materials from cultures all over those areas. And tonight, I'm really grateful for our Italian specialist, Lucia Wolf, who many of you already know, and if you don't, you're going to know her after this evening, because she is going to moderate our conversation with our author, Claudio Pozzani. I'm grateful to the two of them for being here and for celebrating language and poetry in this space with us. And you're going to hear from two of my colleagues here in a second about some other work going on throughout this week and throughout the year, always, I think, to celebrate Italian culture. So we are joined here in the Library of Congress with colleagues from, can you still hear me? This is very strange. We are joined here with colleagues from the Italian Cultural Society and the Italian Institute of Culture in Washington, D.C. We're very grateful to you for joining us and bringing this program, and some treats at the end of the program. And everyone is, of course, invited to join us. And here at the library are colleagues from the Alawe division, which is responsible in part for acquiring materials from Western Europe. Antonella is back there, and you're going to get to meet her this evening as well. I hope you will take some time to look at some of the recent acquisitions that we have in Italian futurism. And with that, you guys have a program, and you can see who everyone is. I am going to welcome Francesca to tell you a little bit about her programming, and Elettra after her. And we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you all so much for being here, and welcome.
Actually, Francesca and I switched, but that's fine. Thank you so much for the lovely introduction. And thank you all for being here tonight. We're very happy to have you joining us for this wonderful evening with author Claudio Pozzani for The Voice of Words. an event that we have organized for the 24th week of Italian language in the world, or 24esima settimana della lingua italiana nel mondo. So as you may know, this initiative has been held since 2001, and it has become one of the most important occasions to celebrate Italian language internationally. It is an initiative by the Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and each week is dedicated to a different theme, which this year is L'Italiano fra le righe, Italian between the lines. So of course, there is a strong connection with written texts. As part of the celebration, the Italian Cultural Institute of Washington has organized a series of projects. So this year we had a concert dedicated to the Divine Comedy in collaboration with Italian Cultural Society, slam poetry masterclasses at Georgetown University, Morgan State University, and the University of Richmond, as well as this event tonight. This evening, we will enjoy an engaging conversation and poetry performance by author Claudio Pozzani, whom I strongly thank for being here with us. And of course, I would also like to thank the Library of Congress, the entire staff, and especially Dr. Lucia Wolf, and the Italian Cultural Society, in particular Executive Director Francesca Casazza, for organizing this event and proposing this wonderful collaboration. With that, I leave the floor to Francesca, and I hope you will enjoy the evening.
Thank you, Elettra, and thank you, Suzanne Schadl, Rebecca Roberts, and especially Lucia Wolf for making this possible. We are honored to be in this beautiful space to celebrate the Italian language and the 50th anniversary of the Italian Cultural Society Italian Language Program, which began in 1974 with a contribution from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and with the mission of including Italian in American schools while teaching Italian to adults and children in our headquarters in Bethesda, in Fairfax, and online to all the United States. So we are, after this conversation, you will enjoy an aperitivo offered by us to celebrate this milestone for our society. But now, I have the pleasure to introduce the key figures of this evening. Can you hear me? See? Yes. Claudio Pozzani is an Italian poet, an author, a scholar, and a musician from Genoa, renowned for his poetic performances at the most significant international literary festivals. His poems have been translated and published in over 10 languages. In 1995, he founded the Genoa International Poetry Festival, Parole Spalancate, Italy's oldest and largest poetry event, which he still directs. In 2001, he founded the Stanza della Poesia in Genoa, and in 2015, he co-founded the European platform Versopolis, now comprising 30 festivals. Claudio has published novels, anthologies, poetry collections, and recorded CD books, as well as a DVD of a live reading concert with the Poet Orchestra in Genoa. He received many prizes from the Ministry of Culture and the Premio Catullo in 2012. Congratulations, Claudio, and thank you for being here. And Claudio will be in conversation with Dr. Lucia Wolf, the latest Italian specialist at the Library of Congress since 2011. After earning her degree in literature and philosophy at the Università La Sapienza di Roma, she received a Master of Art in English Literature from George Mason University and a Master's in Library and Information Science from University of Maryland. At the LACE, Lucia is responsible for reference work, researching, and recommending new acquisition from Italy, and serving as a vital cultural liaison between the library and its communities of interest. In 2021, Lucia Wolf published The Unexpected Dante with the Library of Congress, introducing a broad audience to the vastness of the library's collection of Dante. Thank you, Lucia, for your immense work, and the floor is yours. We haven't rehearsed, so we're improvising. Yes, we do. We like.
Sì, okay. Thank you very much. Let me, above all, thanks you, the Library of Congress, because for me the Library of Congress is like a cathedral for a world, and as me, all my life is about words. To be here for me is. Yeah, it's like to go in the church for me. And thank you for Francesca. That as you know, I think that who work in culture now, for me in this period of the world life, for me is a hero, because it's very okay. So yeah. Applause, yeah. So Francesca and Lucia and all the staff of Francesca, for me, are the heroes, because it's very difficult now in a world where the dominant thought is you are what you have, not you are what you are. So it's very important to give importance, and from my heart also very thanks to Istituto Culturale and the director Electra Laduca has a name so futurist, you know, so is I love her of futurism, and then after there is a very beautiful exhibition. So, and last but not least, thank to you, because to have the willing and the willing to go to listen poetry and literature is something very revolutionary in this time. So thank you from the bottom of my heart.
So how am I going to follow that up? I'm just going to say welcome to everybody. I am overjoyed that this is an Italian event, the first one since 2018. So the first one we are organizing and holding after COVID, which is a very important occasion. And I am so excited that you are here on this particular occasion, right?
Yeah, I'm stronger than COVID. You know.
A first of a first. And I hope it will be the first of many. Maybe those festival of poetry, who knows where we will be going from here. So everybody has introduced everybody. I'm going to ask you to be very lenient with me because I have been working on this and I haven't had a lot of time today to sit for a second and center. But we had a wonderful conversation yesterday with Claudio. He came to visit for the first time, and we spoke about his book, which is a wonderful book. So before we start the conversation, though, I am going to invite you to watch the book trailer, okay?
Okay. It's in Italian, but...
Yes. So, Claudio, un pugno allo stomaco e una carezza all'anima, insomma. So, I spent a few months with this wonderful novel, and it is full of layers, so very difficult to unpack in a few minutes, in just 1 hour or 45 minutes. But why don't we just start with Athos Rossini? So tell us who Athos Rossini is.
Yeah, so it's very difficult to talk about a book that you don't know and not yet translated in English, but I hope very soon. Okay, but the history of this novel is that the protagonist is Athos Rossini, that now is a very old man, is 103 years old, and is the last survivor of a quadrumvirato.
Quadrumvirate of, yes, quadrumvirate of
Is
the creatives.
Yeah, that was little bit a paradox, because he made with the other three companions a dictatorship that impose fantasy, freedom, and creative things. So it was a paradox to say under the lines that now we feel free, but in effect we are in a cage, maybe less or more large, but in a cage. So all the books is about where is the role of culture, where is the ethical in the everyday life, where is the ethical in the work. So, and how the technology can change our life. You know, the history is this topic because is, for example, the dictatorship has 8 years
Yes.
power.
And it ended, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
in around the 2030.
Yes.
Third. And the whole history is when this very old ex-dictator has invited to the main TV channel for a last interview about what he do
He did what he
several
did.
several
Yes.
several years ago. So is the structure of the novel is a talk show, TV talk show, but with a lot of flashback and some talks about.
Yes. So it's interesting that it starts with Athos, right? Going into the studio, these corridors, he remembers them from before because he was a journalist himself before becoming a dictator. And there's a lot of being in Athos's mind. Most of the novel, I would say, for a great part, 3/4, is we are in Athos's mind. Yes, he has interactions with, of course, Gabriela Tercero, who is this phenomenal reporter. She is the lead of a series called Kaleidoscopio, right? And they invite these important personages, figures. So she invited Athos, but let's say that Athos didn't only accept, he wanted to go to this interview. I need to ask you a curiosity. It's called Confessions of a Misanthrope, and we know who the misanthrope is. But when Athos goes through this interview, which lasts, as I said, 3/4 of the book, half, a little bit more than half, with a lot of intervals, because they're shooting, they're recording, and it's a live program, so sometimes they need to stop, they need to take a break. Athos is in and out from dialoguing with Gabriela or some other guests who have been invited. But confessions, there is only maybe one part, and don't ask me the page because I wanted to find the page, but it's where it seems a confession when Athos says, you know, we did this revolution and we made it work. We established a dictatorship of the creatives. It only lasted 8 years, but it's not our fault. Maybe our fault is that we didn't leave before it needed to finish, right? He says that at some point.
Yeah. Yeah, the figure of Athos Rossini is strange because he's a strange misanthrope.
Yes.
No, he's a misanthrope because how his approach to other people, and he don't like the mediocrity of people, and
Yes.
so is really misanthrope for this. But in the same time, is someone that all his life fight to become, to contribute to become the world better.
Yes.
So better in the beauty, better in the sharing of knowledge. So is a misanthrope, but also the opposite, you know.
Yes. He is also simpatico, we say in Italian. You know, at traits he is really simpatico. I have struggled to find a word in English that translates simpatico, because nice doesn't do it, right?
No,
especially with Athos. Nice doesn't.
Yeah, nice, but also there was I don't remember exactly, but an actor in the first of 20th century that the man that you love to hate. No.
Yes. So I could not stand him at first, honestly. This big looming figure, and his name is Athos, so a giant in Greek mythology.
Musketeer, no?
Okay, also the musketeer, but I immediately thought of the Greek mythology, Athos warring against Poseidon, and then Poseidon throws a rock into the sea, and Mount Athos erupts from the sea, okay? And then there was another connection for me, not that he is a monk or he's very spiritual, but in some ways he is spiritual. It's not in the way we intend spiritual, but I think Athos is spiritual because he's an idealist, and he was the ideologue of the quadrumvirate, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so monasteries, Orthodox monasteries are typically on this Mount Athos, very remote, very far away. Yeah. I don't know why I made that connection, but I made a lot of connections because this novel, let me say it right away, really grabbed me. After a few initial, problems to trying to learn about Athos, and he was not very nice at the beginning for me, and he's not a nice person. But I was grabbed into this novel, which really, it's poetry. The words are so important. Each word is so important. So why don't we try and read a passage that you prepared, because this way we can continue to talk about Athos.
Yeah, maybe I can...
quadrumvirate, right?
Yeah, I read a very short part about the thoughts that Athos has towards about the society and the revolution. But I read in Italian.
Yes.
All of you understand Italian, yes? Yes.
I'll do my best.
But Lucia is very good. And la nostra rivoluzione è come se me la ricordo. La rivoluzione automatica l'avevamo chiamata. E ancora adesso non si capisce se quella definizione fosse derivata dal fatto che iniziò senza un motivo o senza un bisogno pressante. La forbice tra ricchi e poveri era, come al solito, aperta e tagliente verso il basso. E non era neanche aumentata la distanza tra ricchi e poveri, era soltanto successo che molti dei primi erano andati a ingrossare la fila dei secondi. I mercati erano talmente globali che ormai non esistevano più le economie dei singoli stati. C'era un sistema piramidale su base planetaria, transnazionale, per cui tutto era dominato da una sorta di oligarchia formata da una decina di gruppi industriali, che a loro volta erano divisa in sottogruppi e così via. Comunque, nulla di così insostenibile o nuovo. D'altronde non è che le evoluzioni siano mai cominciate dall'oggi al domani, anche se a posteriori si fissano date e cronistorie precise. La rivoluzione automatica affondava la sua ragion d'essere solamente nel decadimento della qualità di ogni comparto della vita umana: politica, cultura, gioco, convivenza. Insomma, doveva succedere qualcosa, un meteorite, un'invasione di scarafaggi geneticamente modificati, oppure, come infatti avvenne, una rivoluzione. Era un periodo in cui covavo una voglia matta di lasciare una traccia profonda e indelebile nella storia della mia nazione e magari del mondo intero, raddrizzando la rotta dell'umanità, rimettendo al centro certi valori che erano schiacciati e ridicolizzati come l'arte, bello, la cultura, l'etica. Se vivo in un mondo che fa schifo, lo devo a gente che fa schifo. Perché se tutti fossero come me non ci sarebbe bisogno di polizia, di esercito, di guardie di finanza. La pulizia delle strade potrebbe essere fatta con la metà del personale, la gente userebbe i servizi pubblici che sarebbero ordinati e decenti, il mare e l'aria sarebbero liberi e più puliti. Per gestire una nazione basterebbe una decina di persone, altro che centinaia se non migliaia di impiegati, funzionari, parlamentari con i loro lacchè. Tirate voi le somme del risparmio, anche i soldoni, oltre che in migliore qualità della vita, e invece no, e invece no. E allora ho sempre riso in faccia chi mi parlava di uguaglianza. Non potevo considerarmi uguale a quelle squallide figure che trascinavano le loro insulse esistenze, lasciando tracce visibili del loro marciume interiore. Quegli esseri erano sabbie mobili che mi tiravano giù, che mi obbligavano a una schivitù fatta di pensieri che restavano bassi e piccoli e venivano calpestati, senza nessuno che se ne accorgesse, come un insetto qualsiasi. Ecco cosa pensavo.
So this is in synthesis, right? The reason why Athos and the Quadriumvirate decided to enact a revolution. And it's very clear here that he says it just had to happen. It just had to happen because there was a complete decadence of humanity and society. Something needed to happen, right? So it's almost saying that he needed to do something that was virtuous, and it was this revolution to save l'arte, il bello, la cultura e l'etica, right? So we're talking about a revolution that is based on politics, but it's not really for politics. It is an attempt to save the world, to save humanity and society, and to bring back again meaning, beauty, art, imagination into life, right? This is his enunciation of the reasons why, okay? So he says, if it's not my fault if I had to, se vivo in un mondo che fa schifo, it's not my fault if I had to create this revolution. It's a horrible world. It's decay. And he goes on and lists everything that is not working in the current society. So there is also a reference to, it's a subtle reference. Revolution to establish a regime, a dictatorship, versus democracy, right? Uguaglianza. He doesn't care at all about uguaglianza, right? And if the result of uguaglianza is this marciume, is this decay, this trash, then what is the point of democracy? What is the point of equality? Right? Is that what we're getting from Athos in this?
Yeah, of course, the figure of Athos is full of also the ironics,
Yes.
no? And of course, he said, okay, but if I live in a rotten world,
Yes.
is because the most part of people that live in this world is rotten. So there is no equality for this, because if all people is like me, he said, there is no need to have a police, no need to have the law, no need to have someone that clean the street, because I don't make nothing against the law. I don't sporco la strada.
I don't dirty the.
So is yeah.
There's no necessity.
Is also
for
the way
cleaning.
to live the people that is it need to have a revolution.
Yes.
So is this okay? In the talks of Athos, there is a mix of some also spirituality,
Yes.
but also some
Idealism,
delirium.
spiritual-
Yeah.
Yes. This is a typical rumination of Athos, right? He's not even talking to Gabriela here. This is one of his many ruminations. I'm thinking. Yes.
And for this, I wrote also a poem.
Yes.
Okay.
So
Okay, I read you a poem that I wrote about my feeling to be an outsider, because for at least 40 years, people has been asking, yes, but your job, what is your job? And when I said, okay, I'm poet.
I'm a poet. They don't.
Okay, your job. Okay, after half an hour like this, okay, yeah, I'll say, no. Okay, I organize a very big festival in Genoa. This is job. But a festival of what? A festival of what? Of poetry. Yes, your job, so poetry. Okay, I'm arrived to my age without understand if mine is a profession, passion, fight, or hobby, but I don't care, you know. And this is a poem that you have, maybe also the translation there.
You want to use?
Yeah. And the title is Sono, I am. But as you know, Italian people talk with the hands, I go there because if not. Sì? Ok, perfetto. Io sono, sono, I am. Ok. Sono l'apostolo, lasciato fuori dall'ultima cena. Sono il garibaldino, arrivato troppo tardi allo scoglio di Quarto. Sono il messia di una religione in cui nessuno crede. Io sono l'escluso, l'outsider, il maledetto che non cede. Sono il protagonista che muore nella prima pagina. Sono il gatto guercio che nessuna vecchia vuol carezzare. Sono la bestia idrofoba che morde la mano tesa per pietà. Io sono l'escluso, l'outsider, il maledetto senza età. Sono l'onda anomala che porta via asciugamani e radioline. Sono il malinteso che fa litigare. Sono il diavolo che ha schivato il calamaio di Lutero. Sono la pellicola che si strappa sul più bello. Io sono l'escluso, l'outsider, un chiodo nel cervello. Sono la pallina che flipper che cade un punto prima del record. Sono l'autorete all'ultimo secondo. Sono il bimbo che ghigna contro le sberle della madre. Sono la paura che sta per essere falciata. Io sono l'escluso, l'outsider. Questa pagina strappata. So we mix because you know I feel to be essential poet. But there is, you know, I always made a parallelism. Parallelism, okay. Parallelism, yeah. Okay, no, excuse me for my English. No. It's not like yours, no, you know.
It doesn't matter.
It's okay, va bene,
Va
okay.
benissimo, va bene.
Okay. Yeah, a comparison, vabbè, parallelism, okay. I try to, okay, between, for example, poetry and novel, okay, and photography and cinema. You use the same medium, but the approach and the results is different. For example, I can't sit to a table and say, okay, now I write a poem. But, for example, to write the novel, you can have a discipline to say, okay, every day you can wake up and go and write some lines. So there is a different approach, but you use always the same medium. So the poetry, if you want, is more anarchic. While the novel, there is a
Static.
yeah,
Yes.
there is a strategy. Is yeah, for this reason.
The strategy you adopted for this novel is very interesting because you, in a conversation we had yesterday, you revealed that you had written parts of the novel over time, right? You had written, and it was like a jigsaw puzzle, and that during COVID, you finally decided, and that's the discipline, right? You finally decided to put it all together, right?
Yeah,
That's an interesting process. Yes.
Because I wrote a first novel in 1903, I think. Yes, 1903. And then, but it's a novel that is not published in Italy, but in France and Romania.
Kate et moi.
I don't know why, but
Kate
it's
and-
good. And then after this novel, I try. Okay, now I write another novel. So during 15 years, maybe 20, I wrote some things following an idea that I had about a new novel. But after, during the lockdown, as many other people, I think, okay, I said, okay, now I have a lot of piece of this, like some scene of this film, this movie. So I tried to montare, no?
Yes, a montage. Yeah.
No, montage, okay. And after this, I thought that I would like to be published to a specific publisher that is Nave di Teseo. So I send my novel to them, and because it was my dream, because is a very good publisher in Italy. And after 15 days, they say, okay, it's very good. So, okay.
Wonderful.
At the first trying.
That's good.
So it's good.
That's very good.
So it's.
That's what you want a publisher to do, right? No.
Yeah. I save time to search for
Yes,
other.
publishers. Nave
That
del
is-
Teseo is a smaller publisher. They're becoming
Yeah,
very big.
was a part of Bompiani. Then, when Bompiani was sold to Berlusconi, a part of intellectual people, Umberto Eco, found the
La Nave del Teseo, which
is
also-
founded by Umberto Eco. Yeah.
Yes. So, shall we? There was something interesting in this novel. So we have this long interview and lots of ruminations in the Studio One, right? And for a long time, we just follow the path of his thinking, gets lost in thought. has altercations with politicians invited to the studio, has this the dialogue which is a little bit conflicting with Gabriela, but they have a respect for each other. And then suddenly everything, not suddenly, but the interview ends and he goes back home. He is an ergastolano, so he has been condemned to house arrest for the rest of his life, right? And this was the first occasion he had of getting out of the house. So he goes back home, right? I thought, okay, we're nearing the end, but something apocalyptic happens. And it happens because of Athos, right? He publishes a memoir. And he includes in a memoir, he includes in a memoir some documents, and some classified secret documents that reveal a lot about politicians and corruption. So we get to that apocalyptic phase where there's a civil war, right, in town. There's bombing. Athos is in his house with Adele, an important figure. We don't have time to touch upon all these beautiful characters, Adele, Sandra, and many others.
The female characters are the most important.
Yes, Gabriella, Sandra, and Adele. Athos decides to go to this location, La Spianata, right? He has 2 bodyguards. He always fights with his bodyguards, right? 2 big bodyguards. And he asks them to take him to La Spianata, right? It's this beautiful, high, elevated place, and he can see what is happening to the city. And at one point, he sees that his house is bombed, right? And so there's this scene. I think you chose it for one of the La Spianata. It's interesting, and I'm not going to reveal more because I got caught up in it, thinking that, okay, something really action-like, movie-like, apocalyptic is finally happening in this novel. And I thought it was going to be approaching the end, but there's a surprise, and I'm not going to say any more.
Yeah, so imagine that there is a fight, street by street,
Yes,
you know,
yes.
and he is with the 2 bodyguards in the Spianata, no?
Yes.
So
Elevate,
and to see like was like a cinemascope.
yes,
No?
yes. But he's up top.
And yeah.
He thinks Adele dies in the bombing of his house also, right?
And the 2 bodyguards said, okay, we have the news that also your house is attacked.
Yes.
And all people inside is killed. So also Adele, that is the woman that live with him.
His partner for life, yeah.
La ricetrasmettente gracchia dentro l'auto. L'autista si precipita a rispondere. Lo vedo tornare con una brutta espressione, mi guarda fisso. Signore, la sua casa è stata attaccata e purtroppo tutti i presenti sono stati uccisi. La mia bocca si apre, ma dalla gola non passa nulla. Le immagini si schiantano, si calpestano come una folla isterica verso l'uscita di sicurezza, ma la porta rimane chiusa. Adele starà sbavando sangue sulla cera con cui profumava i pavimenti del salone. I vestiti, gli oggetti di tutta una vita distrutti, gettati a terra, manipolati da gente che non conosce la loro storia. Sento quelle centinaia di mani frugarmi dentro. Può accompagnarmi dall'altro lato della spianata? L'autista mi prende sotto braccio. Le mie gambe sono rigide, il fiato si è accorciato. Ora guardo in direzione di casa mia. Una colonna di fumo sale dritta come un punto esclamativo. Mi dispiace, signore, stiamo attendendo ordini per sapere dove dirigerci. Ordini? Secondo voi c'è qualcuno che riesca a dare ordini? L'altro poliziotto è attaccato al suo cellulare e ci urla dentro. Sta parlando con qualche superiore, dice che vuole rientrare in città, ma evidentemente gli stanno consigliando di restare dov'è. Se siete in pensiero per le vostre famiglie, rientrate pure senza problema. Io resto qui per un po'. Mi tornerete a prendere dopo. Non se ne parla, signore. Dobbiamo proteggerla. Ma non c'è più nessuno che possa punirvi se trasgredite. Non se ne parla. Guardo ancora verso la mia casa. Una leggera brezza sta trasformando il punto esclamativo in una sorta di scala fumigante diagonale che sale. Vedo Adele percorrerla con quelle scarpe alte che mi piacevano tanto. Posso fare una telefonata dall'auto, chiedo. Il mio cellulare non funziona più. L'autista mi accompagna. È un buon uomo. Spero che lui e la sua famiglia ce la facciano a uscire incolumi. Le cicale riprendono a finire per arrestarsi a ogni nuova esplosione e poi ricominciare. È una metafora di quello che succederà. Grazie. Mi siedo al posto di guida e prendo in mano l'apparecchio. Può lasciarmi solo? L'autista si allontana. Ha commesso l'unico errore della sua carriera. Le chiavi sono nel cruscotto. Vedo i due che parlano fitto, forse si stanno litigando su cosa fare. Tra poco li libererò dai loro compiti e deciderò per loro. Sento un dolore costale quando metto in moto. Il ginocchio mi duole quando premo sull'acceleratore. La balaustra può contenere la forza di un abbraccio tra innamorati, non certo una macchina blindata di queste dimensioni. Per tutta la vita sono stato preso in giro per la mia inettitudine alla guida. Questa sarà la mia manovra migliore. Con la coda dell'occhio intravedo i due corrermi incontro. Gli passo accanto veloce. All'autista resta in mano un pezzo di ritrovisore. Sento la ringhiera cedere di schianto come se aprisse il mio stomaco. Il cuore mi salta in gola. Urlo. Ho sempre odiato le montagne russe. Il cielo si rovescia, la faccia di Sandra, gli alberi si avvicinano, Adele con gli occhi fissi, io bambino che corro, una folla davanti, una corsia d'ospedale, una spiaggia d'inverno. Mi rintano in me come una tartaruga, aspettando l'impatto.
So, he he goes into the car. His bodyguards are, fumbling with phones. Something is happening. It's very crucial. So he says to them, "Can I go to the car and make a call? I want to call Adele because their house has been bombed." He goes in the car, sees that the keys are there, right on the dashboard. So he grabs them, he starts the car, and he drives past the two bodyguards, and he throws himself off this cliff with the car, like a Thelma and Louise kind of style, right? And it's okay, he committed suicide, right? But there's a surprise after this.
But stop, because if not, no, because it's an interesting history about this. When I wrote my novel, I stopped with this. Then the publisher said, okay, but we were in a period very hard, was COVID, so said, people maybe want something not so pessimist, no? But I was coherente, no? Coherent. With the character of Athos. But okay, I say, okay, no problem. I add a part, but the part after is continue the idea, but with some light of hope, But I don't say it more because if not, they don't.
They won't read.
Okay,
You'll
it's
have
like
to wait.
a.
They'll have to wait for the translation too.
Okay, yes. No, then I'm very happy that I cross my finger, but there is a team of scenarists that are preparing TV series. So I think, yes, also because they finished to ask me my job after this. No, but okay. But concerning this, I would like to read you a poem because it's La Marcia dell'Ombra. Because it's a poem related to this. Because I was in a meeting of UNESCO, and we were one poet for every nation. And they say to, okay, you read some one poem about war. No, it's always actual. No,
Yes, always current.
always there is a war. Yeah. And I thought about that war like a bombing of a note to be untied. Okay. Okay. And you know, some walls that suddenly grew up around you, become you indifferent to everything. But after I said, okay, but there is another war, another fight that all of us, we fight every day, and is the war between the light of passion, of love, of sharing of knowledge, and the shadow and the darkness of indifference, of ignorance, of arrogance. And so the only weapon that we have is to keep our eyes open and our mind always on, without off. So is La Marcia dell'Ombra, as maybe you have.
Yes.
How beautiful you are. Huh? This is nice. When there is someone that come for poetry, I'm really, really happy. Ok. La Marcia dell'Ombra. Stanno cadendo corde dal cielo e gelide catene ti danzano attorno. È un mondo di nodi da sciogliere al buio, tra un lampo e l'altro di fosforo e grida. È un groviglio di corde che rifiutano forbici, è un pettine che si incastra dentro chiome che non pensano, è ombra, ombra, è un battito di ciglia ancora, ombra, ombra, è un battito di ciglia ancora. Mi guardo attorno e vedo dei muri. Persino il mio specchio è diventato un muro. Sui tuoi seni è cresciuta una pelle di mulo, il mio cuore e i miei sensi reincarnati in muri. E continuano a piovere preghiere e bestemmie che evaporano appena tocca la sabbia. E continuano a strisciare in un silenzio velenoso avverbi, aggettivi, parole senza suono e ombra, ombra, è un battito di ciglia ancora. Ombra, ombra, è un battito di ciglia ancora. Del sole vedo solo il suo riflesso nelle pozze iridescenti di acqua piovana. Della luna indovino la sua presenza nel buio, da lontano abbaiare dei cani legati. La mia pace non è la mancanza di guerra, la mia pace è l'assenza del concetto di guerra. La mia pace non è la mancanza di guerra, la mia pace è l'assenza del concetto di guerra e non ombra, ombra, ma un battito di ciglia ancora. Ombra, ombra, è un battito di ciglia ancora. Om, om.
So, no words. No words of.
No, you have to speak.
I have to speak. Okay. I'm fascinated, also because there's a concept of music. You are using words, and that's why the voice of words, right? Your way of sharing poetry is not reciting it or not sitting down in an academic environment, but it is using your whole body and sound, right? Poesia sonora, poesia anche rumorosa. Not yours, not yours. Bear with me. I'm leading to avant-gardes, right? There is a connection between some of Athos's program for this revolution, for this dictatorship, and there is also a connection between your new type of poetry, not to be just read in books and published. It's good that it's published for us, but to be shared with your voice, with your body, with gestures. You were a musician too, so that's it.
Yeah, I think that the priority of poetry is the text. Okay, then the way you read the text, okay, is another. The second time that you write the poem. When I read poetry, I try to give a body of the soul to the soul of my poem, and to give a third dimension or fourth dimension to my poem. So I think that orality in poem, but the tradition was oral. No, the Divina Commedia was by oral. No,
right.
Yeah. So the voice for me is very important for the poetry, but also everybody of you, when you write, you read not only the poems but also narrative. You have your voice, inner voice, that has a specific tone, no?
Yes.
And this tone change by your emotion, by your mood.
As you get involved.
So the voice is like a thermometer of your life, no? The voice inner and also. Then I will end with a poem about the inner voice that too often we can't go out, no?
Right.
But I know to answer to your question, I think that violence starts when you have no words available more. So in this case, I always thought that reading, listening, but also poetry, literature in general, is an instrument of peace, because help to enlarge our vocabulary, no? Our dictionary, our words to be used. So in this way can keep away the violence, because the more you have words to explain your sentiment, your feeling, your rage, your anger, more the violence is away. So for this reason, also when I go to the school, to the university, I said, you have to read, because you have to have a lot of weapon words to express yourself. But I think also that there is too much courses of workshop of creative writing.
Yes.
Maybe there will be also a lot of workshop of creative reading, creative listening, because poetry in Italy, but also in Europe, is not maybe I don't know in States, but almost everybody write poetry. Almost no one read poetry. So it's a very paradigmatic of the contemporary society, where everybody wants to express, above all in topic that they don't know nothing, and they don't try to find the time and willing to listen and to read the others. So we live in a lot of monologue between death.
Deaf people. No meaning, no, yes.
So this is so the listening is more important than the express.
And talking.
So for this reason, I said when I go in the school, I said, oh, some hints to for read, and for me, I think that for each poem that I write, I read at least 500 poems. So for this.
That is beautiful to learn about what the virtue of poetry for you, the ideal of poetry, and how you poiesis, how you create poetry, right?
Poiesis, tra l'altro, the meaning is to do,
yes,
to make.
Yes, that's why I brought it up, because you're making something with your soul, your mind, and it is a virtue, right? It leads us a little bit back to Athos, but I am afraid that maybe we cannot continue with the conversation. But what about reading another of your poems? You were talking about a poem that is specific to what we are talking here, right?
Maybe.
Cerca in te la voce?
Okay, I read the two poems because there is a why, because I would like to read and to share with you a poem that I write about my beginning, my birth, about the moment when I go out from the body of my mother, and maybe our eyes, they crossed, but I don't remember. And yeah.
A mia madre, no?
A mia madre, to my mother. Yeah, and that is just was yesterday was just 2 years that she died. So is for them, for her. Ti ho visto in faccia in quella stanza. Io sporco di sangue e di muco. Tu stravolta e curiosa. Ho tentato di dirti che non ero sicuro di voler restare fuori di te, ma le parole che avevo in testa nella mia bocca si impastavano male. Avevo appena imparato che tutta la vita sarebbe stata ipocrisia e paradosso. Ti avevo appena fatta soffrire, ti avevo fatta sanguinare. Eppure ero io a piangere e tu a sorridermi. Ti ho visto in faccia in quella stanza mentre mi portavano via. C'era troppa confusione per dirti quanto io fossi felice di poter finalmente dare un viso al ventre che mi aveva ospitato. E più tardi con i miei colleghi si discuteva di reincarnazione, di eterno ritorno, dei cicli di Vico. Ma non vedevo l'ora di rivederti e di conoscere il tuo uomo e vostro figlio, dei quali sentivo la voce ovattata e lontana. Ti ho visto in faccia in quella stanza e darei tutto quello che ho per ricordarmene.
Yes, please.
Okay, allora, we finish.
The stage is yours.
Oh, no, thanks. But without you here, I was...
No, I'm just...
Okay, allora, this last poem is always, the poems are linked also to the novel, so
we haven't been able to make all the points, but they are linked, yes.
Yeah. I don't understand, but...
oh, sorry.
No, but you said very well, so it's good. This poem, I wrote this poem in Colombia when 25 years ago I was in a festival in Medellin. That is the most important festival in the world. You can read poetry in front of 20,000 people. In Italy, no. Okay. So, but I talk about, as I told you before, about the voice that we have inside. And too often we
Yes,
sacrifice.
definitely.
So I wrote this kind of invocation to voice, cage, thoracic,
Your thoracic, your chest.
chest, and solitude, loneliness. Okay.
Solitude too.
Solitude.
We can say that.
Okay. This angle italien is good. And yeah, the name in Italian is Cerca in te la voce che non senti, mangia l'universo se non la comprendi. In Italian, in English is seek on yourself.
Yes.
Vabbè, but you
Seek in yourself the voice that you can't hear. It's an invocation for voice, thoracic cage, and solitude.
Quella lì, sì. And this I dedicate this poem to all of you, and you push your voice, inner voice, when, because if not the other, they bite yourself. No, you have to fight with your voice also. Cerca in te la voce che non senti, invocazione per voce, cassa toracica e solitudine. There is someone that live. No, okay.
No, it's
Cerca in te la voce che non senti. Mangia l'universo se non la comprendi. Basse case dai tetti spioventi, lacrimanti piogge da gronde ormai marce, profumo di terra, di foglie, di stagni, sinistri paesaggi di candido marmo. Cerca in te la voce che non senti. Mangia l'universo se non la comprendi. Vermi che giacciono sotto il fondo fangoso, topi che nuotano in ruscelli d'acciaio, fumo di nebbia, auto veloci che brucano l'este e tagliatelle d'asfalto. Cerca in te la voce che non senti. Mangia l'universo se non la comprendi. Ombre di creta camminano stanche, scuotendo bassa la conica testa. Obliqui fantasmi stampati sul muro ricordano fughe e cavalli di Frisia. Cerca in te la voce che non senti. Mangia l'universo se non la comprendi. Cerca in te la voce che non senti. Mangia l'universo se non la comprendi. Cerca in te la voce che non senti. Mangia l'universo se non la comprendi. Cerca in te la voce che non senti. Mangia l'universo se non la comprendi.
so. Time is, unfortunately, time is not on our side. But we've had a wonderful poetry performance, and we've spoken some about this great novel, and I really hope we find a translator, and maybe I'll talk to someone I know. And Anthony Sugar, do you know Anthony Sugar? He is actually a translator for Italian novels, and
Yeah, I try to find a translation and of course a publisher. So the book will be a great bestseller. So
yes, it will. I am sorry to interrupt like this. I would love to have more time and everything, but we're on a timeline. So that was phenomenal, and I don't know. I would like to open to the public. I would like to.
yeah, of course.
I
of
don't
course.
want to do all the talking, also because I'm speechless. At this point, I'm speechless.
No, I'm
Please.
very happy if there is some question. I know that is not so easy asking something about a book that you have not read yet, but maybe there is some
About the poetry.
impression or, well, I don't know.
Is it on?
He's not ready.
Hello, thank you ever so much. What is particularly remarkable, beyond your sensitivity and perception, which is wonderful, I thought was interpretation. That is remarkable. My father was a famous actor, and I can appreciate your interpretation. Bravo, well done.
Grazie mille.
And I do have a publisher for you and a translator too. So
Thank you.
we'll be in
Ottimo. Thank you.
May I just say a word on translator, and then I'll finish. Suzanne
I want to
in memory of her.
memory of her, because she was a great a translator, a great person that made a bridge between America and Italy. Is very now is not here, but somewhere.
Maybe we'll publish those too, her translation.
Yeah.
I want to thank you very much, and as an emerging writer myself at my age, I wanted to say that I've read lots of poetry about the beat poets, and in particular Ginsberg, and I just feel that your performance of the poems in Italian, and since Italian was my mother language, has just brought such a gift to me tonight. So I really appreciate transferring what I learned in English and bringing it back in Italian. So thank you very much.
Thank you to you. Thank you also because you talk about Ginsberg, and in my festival, well, I don't speak about my festival, but is the largest and the longest running festival of poetry in Italy. That is 30, non so mai dire 30.
30th of
Ecco, 30 year.
June. Francesca mentioned something about that.
Yeah.
And you have it every year. You direct.
And Ferlinghetti, that was a friend and publisher of Owl of Ginsburg, came 3 times in my festival. And he said one sentence that is also in one of his poems, that is became the motto of my life. And living well is the best revenge. Okay, basta.
So it is very unfortunate, but we have to close here. I wish we had more time.
But we can
Yes.
continue
Yes, we
in front of
Yes.
wine, so is so give you more willing to ask me something.
Yes, perfect.
Thank you very much to Lucia,
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming.
to Francesca, to Elettra. Bombardamento.
Bombardamento, vuoi fare un
If you want,
let's do a bombing.
because my great love as a
The futurist, right?
is a futurist. So one of poem most famous of Marinetti is Zamtuntum, Bombardamento di Adrianopoli. And in my reading, I read always this kind of poem because it is a poem that opened of sound poetry, because he was there as a war reporter. But instead to write an article, he wrote this poem that is maybe the first trying to put the noise of war inside the poem. So not only onomatopoeica, but the real noise. So I would like to close this evening for me to make a
bridge.
relation,
A bridge with the,
the bridge
futurist. And
with the beautiful
Yes,
exhibition
of course.
that is a gift for me
It
to be
is.
here, and I have to.
It is.
Basta, mi state viziando troppo, come si dice.
We are spoiling you. You deserve it.
This poem is 1912. Ogni 5 secondi cannoni d'assedio sventrare spazio con l'accordo. Tam, tum tum. Ammutinamento di 500 echi per azzannarlo, sminuzzarlo, sparpagliarlo all'infinito. Nel centro di quei tam, tum tum spiaccicati, ampiezza 50 km quadrati, balzare, scoppi, tagli, pugni, batterie, tiro rapido, violenza, ferocia, regolarità. Questo basso, grave scandali, gli strani folli agitatissimi acuti della battaglia, furia, affanno, orecchi, occhi, naso, aperti, attenti, forza, che gioia. Vedere, udire, fiutare, tutto ta 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 ta, delle mitragliatrici, strillare a perdere il fiato sottomossi, schiaffi, trac, 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 frustate, pic, pac, pum, pum, pum. Bizzarrie, salti, altezza 200 metri di fucileria e giù, giù, in fondo all'orchestra stagni di guazzai, bufali, buoi, pungoli cari, pluff, 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 impennarsi i cavalli, flic, flac, zing, zing, shac, 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 i laritriti, scalpacci, tintinni, 3 battaglioni bulgari in marcia, cric, croc, Sciumi Marizza, o Carvavena, croc, 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 grida degli ufficiali, sbattacchiare come piedi dottoni, pandi qua, pandi là, cing, boom, boom, cia, 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 su, giù, 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 là, intorno, in alto, attenzione sulla testa, ciac, 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 e vampe, 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 ribalta dei forti, vampe, vampe, vampe. Dietro quel fumo, Shukri Pascià comunica telefonicamente con 27 forti in turco e in tedesco. Allo, 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 Ibrahim Rudolf, allo, allo. Attori, ruoli, echi, suggeritori, scenari di fumo, foreste, applausi, odori di fieno, fango, sterco. Non sento più i miei piedi gelati. Non sento più i miei piedi gelati. Odore di salnitro, odore di marcio e timpani, flauti, clarini dovunque, basso, alto, uccelli cinguettare, beatitudine ombrie, cip, 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 brezza verde e mandre, din don, me, e tum, 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 orchestra pazzi bastonare, professori d'orchestra, questi bastonatissimi, e suonare, suonare, grandi fragori, non cancellare, precisare ritagliandoli rumori più piccoli, mitudissimi rottami di echi nella teatro, ampiezza 300 km quadri, fiumi Marizza, Tungia, Sreati, Monti Rodo, Piritti, alture, palchi, loggione, 2000 granati, sbarciarsi, esplodere, fazzoletti bianchissimi, penni d'oro e tum, 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 2000 granate protese, strappare con schianti, capigliature tenebre, zam, tum, tum, tum. Orchestra dei rumori di guerra, gonfiarsi sotto una nota di silenzio, tenuta nell'alto cielo, pallone sferico dorato, sorvegliare i tiri, sorvegliare i tiri, sorvegliare i tiri. Grazie, grazie.